Because earlier in 2023, we were able to present for OCALI around the idea of moving and shifting away from the expert model to more of a coaching model. And so that's what today's topic is all about. And if you have been to AT Town Halls before, we are all about having you guys take the lead, and we have things that we can facilitate. But there's probably a reason that you opted to join today. And so if there's anyone here who wants to pop in and just speak up and say, yeah, I want to know more about, or this has been on my mind, we'll follow your lead with that. I think we can tell it's Monday after the New Year's and everyone is going back to work and just trying to settle in. I'm actually home today. My son spiked a fever last night, so I get to show you my home background again, which is fun. So when we did our Ocali presentation, there were three kind of segments within it. And the first one was really talking about this fixed mindset versus growth mindset, and how I think everyone here understands what a growth mindset is and why it's important. But I'm going to ask you guys, especially being January 8th, new year, we're all back in with our people. I think people are more open to new ideas and feeling and doing a different way. How are you supporting the team members that you work with, whether they're teachers, administrators, other consultants, families, on shifting away from this fixed mindset of someone's got to have an answer and I'm going to look to you, to more of this growth mindset of collaboration and working together and problem solving as a team?
Okay, I'll be brave and dive in at the first of the new year.
Thank you.
So I'm Kirsten Kohlmeyer. I'm the Assistive Technology Director at a place called Redwood Literacy. And we have a brick and mortar program and we have an online program that's primarily for students with dyslexia and other language-based LD, some high-level ASD kids as well. And we're kind of attacking that problem from the top down and the bottom up. And I know we're a private setting, so, I think some of the principles may be able to be applied in public, but you may get some resistance. Um, we have teachers who write integration of technology of some sort into their professional growth plan. So everybody's at a different place at that in their career, and I help support those individual goals. And that could be by a Zoom consult, it could be me popping in and modeling, it can be me showing up at in the classroom physically or virtually if that's the way that the instruction is delivered. And I'm kind of actually working my way out of a job, which I think is a good sign that I'm doing okay. We also have AT onboarding modules where, there's a gazillion tools out there, and we have a basic suite that is primarily UDL for all of our kids. And when teachers start at our organization, they are expected within a very reasonable amount of time to go through these AT onboarding modules. And what we've done is kind of curated the best of the best, because let's face it, there's wonderful stuff out there and we did not reinvent the wheel by any means, but who's got the time to pick and choose what's salient to them? So we kind of did that for them. And we've got modules, I think we've got up to 9 modules now. And the scope and sequence and the flow is the same. And from the basic, obviously, what is it, operationally, how do you do it? But what I like about it is we go another level and have video clips and then pop in again feedback on actual integration with students. So we got top down, we got bottom up, we have exit tickets, and it's not just like, oh, what is Bookshare? It's like, download chapter 37, split and merge this and this, and upload it into, so we have practical applications that they need to do in their classroom. So that's how we've kind of attacked the not problem, but try to build capacity without having it all be on my shoulders as the expert. And then we've got plans to build, teacher mentors within the program, student mentors within the program. But it's taking a long time, as you guys know. Change is hard.
Okay, so I'm gonna pop in here too. So I am Sarah, and what I really loved what you were saying, Kristen, is having that individual plan for people. So knowing, yes, this is a part of our culture, it is a part of our vision, and it's our expectation for all staff to embrace accessibility and assistive technology. But recognizing that that plan and how to do that looks different for every teacher is so important. I think sometimes we get this one size fits all professional learning, and it really sometimes doesn't fit most or many. Um, so I loved that. And the other thing I just wanted to mention is having that plan for onboarding new staff can be such a tricky thing. So I love that you've been willing to kind of do the research because there is so much out there.
And we're
Yeah.
fine tuning. I mean, we ask staff feedback and, the person, I work with somebody who is more on boots on the ground and, we're exuberant, we're experienced. And, our initial feedback was like, oh, way too much, scale this back. And so we did. And it's a work in progress as always.
Yeah, I think with staff turnover, which I know everyone is dealing with everywhere, I think that is such a really nice way to get everyone at least a baseline of here's what we have available, here's what we want you to know, and then from there we will dive deeper into specific student needs and specific needs within the classroom. And so to kind of echo what Sara said, I love that it's twofold, that I'm personally going to grow in this area, but I also know that I've got this baseline of modules that I can jump in and share with others. And that again, it kind of takes away you having to use your limited amount of time on a day-to-day basis, teaching new teachers and finding time to meet with them and just saying, hey, here are the modules that everyone needs to watch. Let's get you started there. And then we can kind of jump in and connect later. We did have someone in the chat. Kim was asking if there's any way you can show or share these modules or how it's set up, kind of what it looks like. I'm interested in
Oh
too.
gosh, let me see.
I'm gonna give you a few minutes.
Hang on a second.
Okay.
I don't know. Let's see. Let's see if I can find AT onboarding. Oh, you know what I can share? Hang on. I just gave an in-service on this. So let me just pull up a couple slides. I just gave an in-service on this last week.
That'd be great. Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
Well,
so do you want me
while
to
she does
share
that,
my,
yeah,
or to share my screen?
yeah, if you could do that, I was gonna say while she does that, I'd love to hear from others how you guys are attempting to tackle the issue of the expert model or even onboarding new staff. I know that's been something big before we go into more of the coaching and shifting away from that expert model. Oh yeah, this looks great.
So I'm not a fan of the document on the right side. That's for on I don't it's way too complex for me, but that's above my pay grade, so they insist on having this. But what I like is this master AT onboarding training activity guides. And it's prior to beginning it, we have them look at leveling the playing field, which is something that I wrote, and I don't know where it is in cyberspace, but for the state of Wisconsin, with their new legislation about having students have access to all students having access to digital text. So that's basically an overview of what is AT, why we use it. It's not cheating, blah, blah, blah. Contact information for Dina and myself. We have them make a copy of the checklist so they can track their own progress. We have how-to videos for the different part of the organization the teachers work for. And none of this will make sense to you, and we're even trying to fine tune that because even our teachers who deliver literacy instruction and remediation, we use Wilson, we use spell links, we use some other things. And they always think like, oh, well, that's not for me. I'm teaching my kids to decode. Well, I'm like, but your kids need access to text above their decoding level. And why don't you download a book into Bookshare and upload it into Kami and show them how they can interact with text above their reading level. So we're edging towards even targeting math teachers, focus on this first, and reading teachers focus on this first, and writing instructors focus on that first. And there are modules for all these different tools, and this is our suite. My school has very limited funds. Our mission is to serve high incidence students, but we work in the city of Chicago. So we've got modules that follow the same pattern for all these different tools here. And we have a curriculum called WOW, which is it's called Writing Our World, and we added content to the Writing Revolution. And so the way that this is sequenced here, because this is who it was primarily developed for, is a sequence that we introduce the tools in that curriculum. So like I said, the order in this can be switched up depending on what you teach. And then this just tells them how to get to, physically how to get to the content. And then each content follows the same pattern. It's, what is it, getting started with it, the dashboard, and then we've got, timestamps on how, and of course it's variable depending on somebody's experience, but how long each module will take. And some staff with a lot of experience, breeze right through this, and others who are tech phobic really plod along and still kind of avoid it. And we also have, for that reason, a tracker where we track, and I can't say we're perfect at this, we track the exit tickets to kind of see, is somebody stuck? Is somebody jumping ahead and using tools, but they haven't done the exit ticket yet? Kind of guiding them in their progress. And that's it in a nutshell.
That's fabulous. Thank you so much for sharing it. I'm always interested to see what other districts and other programs are doing to help with onboarding and to help share this out. So it looks like from other nods here in the group too, we're all like, oh, I could use that in my group and I could use that in my group too. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
What are others doing? Is anyone else willing to be brave? All right, I see a hand raised from Krista.
Yes. I'm impressed by Kirsten's program. That's awesome. I'm about 15 years behind, and I am still the expert that has to go out, and really we're still with our low incidence population. Our high incidence, I get calls once in a rare while, so totally being underused, but yet also being the only one, then I'm still way behind the times. It's kind of scary back here.
I don't know so much that you're behind the times. I think it's shifting mindsets and helping people understand what our role can be and why we can help them. One of the things that we talk a lot about just between Carolyn, Mike, myself, and the teams that we work is how we all have expertise. And what I found is sometimes helping people understand why their voice is important in this consideration or implementation helps them start thinking now, like the next time they have a student, oh, I have something to offer in this conversation. I have knowledge in this area. But it's definitely, you're not the only one. If you were, we'd just be sitting on the Zoom together by ourselves.
Very true.
Gail asked me a question, what helped me get administrative
Yeah.
support? And I think it kind of ties into maybe what you might do. And I'm actually I'm in negotiations with consulting with another district. It just takes like a single case or a buy-in, and then I think it dominoes. But like, I can, part of the reason is my school doesn't have even an ed tech person or an IT person. We're so small and so poor, and it's only in its 6th year. So, and I'm a consultant to them. I'm not even there full time. So by the nature of service delivery that they've contracted me to, I've had to develop systems where I can't be the person. And I'm talking to a bigger district in Illinois where I'm trying to convince, they're operating under the expert model, and one of their superintendents called me and they want to shift. And I think it's threatening because people are afraid that they're not going to exist anymore. When in reality, I think the best way to go about it is to give them data, especially all those high incidence kids that they're missing, on, talk admin language. Your test scores are going to improve and your student outcomes are going to improve. And actually you'll need less of an expert if we can infuse this and try and get in the meetings with maybe ed tech. Because I think, teachers are stretched so thin and have so many demands and so many things on their plate that this often, even though it's mandated by law to be considered at every kid's IEP, falls very much by the wayside. And how many IEPs can you physically be in? I'll stop talking now.
No, I love that you are talking. So I'm just like, oh yeah, this is great. Keep going. But I think you brought a really great point up with as far as the IEP part of it, where yes, we have to talk about it, yeah, but it's still a checkbox in a lot of places. And I will say, even, 7 years ago, when I was still running IEPs as a speech language pathologist, I would say, oh, and we always have to consider assistive technology needs, but I'd never go into what that actually meant. And so now, being in an administrative role, I have that opportunity to say, hey, our OT here is going to talk about this. This constitutes as some of the AT that we're talking about, and kind of going back from after we do the PLAF, after we talk about the goals and the objectives and the supplementary aids and services, to kind of go back and say, this is how we considered assistive technology. Do you have any questions about that? Just to really highlight that we want our student to succeed, and it's not just we're not just testing them to make sure that, okay, did you get it? Did you get it? It's what are those tools and what are those supports that will really help you or help that student succeed in the future.
And to tag team on that, I actually did my doctoral capstone on parent education regarding assistive technology, because when kids move from point A to point B, that could be across the hallway to a science teacher, it could be to another building, or it could be to another grade level, depending on that receiving team. Kind of doesn't matter what's written in the IEP as much as we like to think it is. And parents are the only constant that moves with the kid. So educate the kid if they're capable and able and age appropriate, and then educate the parents, and you have a better chance of it following them.
Yes. Like I want to go, like if I had a flag, I'd be raising it right now. So the other point, not only are our families important, but one of the things you mentioned is your school is so small that you don't have these different departments. And I think that's something that we often need to have this conversation is assistive technology is unfortunately viewed as a special education thing. And so we tend to keep it, we have these conversations with special educators around what is assistive technology. We talk about it in IEP meetings, but we really need to start thinking about what do our general education teachers, what do those administrators understand about assistive technology and what their role is, and really starting to break down some of these silos. And as we're having this conversation and we're uncovering it, I'm loving all the head nods that we're seeing, but I'm also seeing some of the eyes, like this work is really hard and it's really challenging and it's messy. But it's also so important, not only for our students with IEPs and receiving special education services, but one of the other points that you highlighted is this can really impact so many learners. Yeah. What other thoughts are out there in terms of things that you've tried that have worked well, or potentially barriers that cause you to hop on the Zoom today? Yeah, so Mary threw in the chat that we have some students that aren't attending school, but they're depending on technology.
Oh, I saw Janice raising her hand.
A
Yeah. Hi,
homeschool
Janice.
environment.
Oh.
They actually tried. I live in Kalispell, Montana. They actually tried to create a neurodivergent school, but failed because there wasn't enough support, wasn't enough funding. It started last year. It started the year before, and yeah, last school year, and then it went into this school year and it failed in the middle. So now they're just doing the homeschool kids that were in it, or just have a teacher one day a week at 3:00 or 12 to 3. Yeah. But they depend on technology that totally, he learned how to read by let's see, not ABC Mouse, but the other one. It's PBS Kids, Super Y. That's how he learned to read. He learned to read before he learned to talk. He's at level 1 autism. They're really hesitant about going to school. He tried to go to school a couple times and it got restrained, so they pulled him out.
Well, and I think that brings back the importance of educating families and really also educating students. And then we saw a huge shift in parents' understanding around assistive technology during the pandemic, because suddenly we were partnering with families differently than we had, and we were teaching them about the power of the tools that these students really needed. So Janice, I want to recognize you had your hand going and you had yourself unmuted. So tell me what you were going to add.
So I was going to say, I am the director of our new program in Tennessee called the Tennessee AT Project. And it's sort of like, it's a state initiative to increase awareness, information, knowledge, training, to build capacity at the state level for public schools. So we actually just got our funding in March. It's federal pass-through funding through the Department of Ed. So we have 6 full-time right now. We'll have 8 when the other 2 are brought on. So we have people across the state. We're located outside of Knoxville, but we're under what's called the Tennessee Technical Assistance Network, which houses their behavior supports, their autism supports, RTI. So it has 7 programs. Family engagement is one of those programs. And that is one that we have just partnered with because we saw that same thing. That parent does go with that child from one class to the next, from one grade to the next. And we're seeing some of the big requests that come in. We have a whole different focus as far as how we're doing what we call our concert tour. We created content on refreshing what is assistive technology, what falls under that umbrella. And so we're doing those in districts across the state at their request, and then kind of regionally too. And then we launched into the second part of it was how to document it, because a lot of times what we see is it appears that the numbers of use are low, but they're not. They're just not documenting them correctly in the IEP to reflect the usage of the tools that are benefiting those kids. So that's been our second big one. And then we decided that our biggest focus, after we started working with the district, we're hearing a common complaint of advocacy and legal, not really, I don't even want to say request, more like they're coming into meetings to help the parents figure out what they need. And what they're saying is, well, we just need to get 39 assistive technology evaluations on these kids and everything will be squared away. And they are sitting, so your staff members are sitting in there not really feeling prepared to, I don't even want to say defend that, but to be able to say, no, we consider that as a part of our IEP. Let's walk through how we do that. So they're missing pieces there. So what we have done is we're partnering with the ARC of Tennessee, which is the Parent Engagement Group of Tennessee, and they also are under this 1010 network. And we have created, in fact, just Friday, our whole team sat down and kind of put the final version on a draft of a very parent-friendly, what is assistive technology? How are you a member of this IEP team? How should we consider it? It's and so we're sending that to the ARC actually today, and they have parents who are going to review it, who are going to make suggestions, who are going to tell us what it does and does not tell them. And so our goal is to kind of finalize it and then adopt it so that it's adopted at the Tennessee Department of Ed level as a parent information resource for teens as well as the parent. And then it can be given out just like a copy of parent rights. Do you need a copy of your parent rights? Do you also need a copy of this on how you participate with our consideration of assistive tech? And that is our big spring focus in the summer is how do we consider and why do we consider, and do we not wait until once a year at a meeting to consider something? It should be a fluid process, an ongoing, changing, evolving process, and we do trials, and we don't have to call in that expert model evaluator to do an eval or to I hate to say worship, but to take them to a center where an assessment can be done, but it's not that child's usual customary functional environment. So we get reports in sometimes, and most of it's very good content, but at the same time, it doesn't merge with maybe what really goes on in that child's classroom or how that team is really supporting that student. So we end up having to tweak it anyway. But anyway, so that's kind of where we are. We're working at it from how can we build capacity at the whole state level. And then, so we're doing it through trainings. We're creating some recorded modules, those sorts of things. But basically, we're in the trenches. We're just running from districts to districts on PD days, regional events, virtual meetups, kinds of things. We're running the quiet matrices with these districts that want to do policy and procedural what we call refine or develop, because some of them have policies, but they're old or they're outdated, or they most of the time when I say, what is your policy? They'll say, call Mary, she'll take care of it. And because that's been their policy, is you call that one person at the district that you had a name for. And so we're kind of throttling that back and saying, no, let's put this in writing. How will this look? And if it will go this way. And so, and then we have just collected dozens of handbooks and policies and guides from districts off the internet, and we've kind of just said, we walk them through going, this is a very comprehensive policy for a district as big as yours, or this is a very small protocol for a district as tiny as what you are with just 4 schools, and then we let them adopt that on their own, but we kind of guide that for them, and then hopefully we're going to provide training as we go. But I know this was kind of like a lot of stuff, but that's kind of where we are. So we're still very new. This was our first semester implementing it, starting in August. So, and then like I said, that parent piece to me is critical, because our parents are the ones who sit in the meetings, will say, who should be saying, well, have we thought about this? Have we considered this? You know, I really want the parents to say, well, this form says this, what have we considered? You know, let's talk about that. And we refer to consideration as equal to conversation. You know, everybody should be having that conversation. It's not one person coming in and saying, I think we're going to do this, and this is how this should be done. And then, you know, you need that team approach, even if it's led by one person. It has to have everybody playing. So I'm done.
No, you're not, because we're going to ask follow-up questions after that. Janice, I love that it's coming from the state level, because I think so often we have little like buildings doing it or districts trying to do it, and even at that, trying to build capacity within the district around these policies and procedures and making sure everyone's following up and doing that. What data are you guys planning to take around implementation of these policies, or outcome, like even anecdotal data? Just because the way you guys are doing it now, going and running from district to district for PD day to PD day, I know you said online modules, but you know, what do you anticipate to come out of it? What do you guys want to see? And when would you hope that you would start to see some sustainable change?
The data on it, what's really nice is the state did a really nice job with it. When they put the 10-10 together, they merged existing programs that were already there. And then our program was the one that did not exist. And I have run an assistive tech center in East Tennessee for schools under that, kind of like under that, you know, professional model of, you know, the one person coming in, but I would pull their teams together, and I'm kind of like all their services. So I have been for years saying, we need this at the state level. We need this at the state level. So when they finally put that out there, of course, I was running and waving my flag going, let me have that, because I kind of know what our districts need. And I help run our state assistive technology association and conference and things. So I have pulled in a lot of people and said, what do we need? What do we need? So, but 1010 has a data team. They're out of the University of Kansas and the University of Kentucky, and they are through their Human Development Institute. It's actually the same Human Development Institute that Joy Zabala was with at the University of Kentucky in all her years there. So the HDI there still runs that. That is who collects our data for us. So we did a logic model, and then we took all the components of the logic model, and we spent the whole summer saying, what pieces will we collect this year? Starting with how many districts will we reach? How many people will attend training? How much mentoring, you know, can we provide? How much support? So it's on a kind of like on a tiered approach, in that it's very universal support. We launched a statewide assistive tech lending library, which was really nice. In my budget, that has over $100,000 a year to put into a lending library, and so we have 2 locations here in our center, and then the University of Tennessee Health Science Center at Memphis, their ODT department, collaborated with us. They are housing the 2nd location. So we're looking at data in terms of what are people borrowing, and is it helping them make a decision on devices when they're doing trials and consideration. And then we have we're actually working this next week, because this is like my little section of my module where I'm working on creating the online surveys now for parents to say, for these kids that we're working with in targeted or intensive level, were you included in this process? Did you feel like this was something that made an impact on your child? So this is something that will go out in May to any of the kids that we've worked with this year. So that's a new data piece we're actually putting together now. But we sort of are starting a little bit at a time. We're seeing huge response in just having the referral link is on the 1010 site. And we've had over 70 referrals since we launched in September, asking for staff development or what we call our helpline, and that you can call here. And we have 8 certified AT specialists across the state. SPED teachers, OTs, PTs, speech, teacher of the visually impaired, transition specialists. Transition is actually another support under 1010. And so we pair you up with who can give you that information that you need and then walk you through it on the phone. Oh, have you thought about this? To kind of help them learn to consider. So we don't get information on the student. We don't attend the IEPs, but we basically can say, tell us what your issues are, tell us what the concerns are, tell us some things about these students. And then we sort of take them under our wing and say, try these things and call me back and see if that doesn't work. And so we're looking to grow that too, as far as our outreach. So it's kind of diverse. It's big in some ways, and then it's very focused on the educator and the clinicians and the students themselves and the families. So did I just generate more questions? So.
Oh, always. But I also don't want to monopolize, just kind of like Kirsten earlier was like, oh, I'm going to be done. I'm like, oh, but shoot, like I've got so many other questions, but I don't want to monopolize that. I do want to just come back to the fact that I love that parents are still a focus in the work that you are doing. I know here in Michigan, we have Michigan Alliance for Families, and they have parent mentors who connect with parents of individuals with disabilities. And so kind of to say, hey, I've gone through it. I have a 26-year-old, you have a 5-year-old, let's connect. So you kind of give you an idea of what to expect and things I wish I would have done or things that you can ask that I didn't know. And I know that when parents have that opportunity to learn about following up about certain things about their students' learning and education, I just feel like it helps empower them so that they don't have to just sit here and be passive participants in their child's life. So I do love that the parent piece is so big. Gail, your hand's raised. Hi, Gail.
Hi. Sorry I'm not on camera today. It's I'm here at home and it's early in the morning here. But I did want to. I'm thrilled with all the conversations about parent involvement and things like that. And I think it's an area where we're just starting to understand how powerful that can be in a capacity building model. One of the things that I've been thinking a lot about these days is that we tend to teach parents a certain set of ideas and facts. What is assistive technology? What can assistive technology do for your kid? Also often, you know, some version of how to do consideration. But one of the things that that I've had some experience with when I was a state coordinator for an AT program is that parents often don't understand our processes. Like we tell them their role in an AT process, but one of the things I've been trying to do in my parent education stuff these days is to talk about, you know, like we have a certain number of days to complete an assessment. We have a lot of legal requirements that I think parents don't often understand. So we need that basic, what is assistive technology and how do you do consideration? And we really need, how do we do implementation? That's the part where, you know, we can't do it without our parents. But I'm wondering, in the parent training modules and the work that I've heard people talk about, whether or not you're addressing this topic of how does an IEP team really work around assistive technology so that parents can build their own capacity to contribute to that project. So let me say these are initial thoughts and ones that I'm just trying to develop. So I'd love any kind of idea about how you might be doing that kind of stuff.
All right, I see Kirsten has her hand raised.
Yeah, so I get past the nuts and bolts of what it is and how it can improve your students' learning and outcomes. I definitely explain to them their the process as well as their rights. And by the time that's either handed to them at the beginning or the end of the meeting, and who reads that 68-page document, and the language in there, especially for people who are not even native English speakers, and those that are, is so high level and got so much education ease in it that it's not even understandable. So I break that down. I literally draw out the process and star where they can insert different things. I also tell them their rights. And I also borrowed from Dave Eddyburn and then added my own. I literally give them, if a district says this, you can say that. If a district says this, you can say that. And not being on one side or the other, but just like, it's very intimidating for parents to be at King Arthur's table and feeling like they're not well represented or they don't understand things. So when somebody says, well, we can't afford that, I give them words to say, well, blah, blah, blah. Or, if Johnny uses digital text, he's never going to learn how to read. I give him a sentence or two or three to choose from. So I give them tools, practical tools and practical understanding of the process, what it looks like, what it can do. And just, I try to empower them as much as possible. Yeah, that was all part of my doctoral capstone where I identified a need, I surveyed the parents, I looked at outcome data, I looked at transition data, what happens to our kids when they leave our particular school, and then I created a whole parent advocacy training module on AT. And the best part of that, I think, is not necessarily, and it wasn't a one and done because, when kids transition to secondary, it's different and educating them on that. But I gave them a list of resources, which I think are invaluable. And they went from the state to the national level that they could always refer back to if they couldn't find Kirsten.
Kirsten, is that parent training module available any place, or is there a link that we could look at? I
can share my slides, sure. And I also, I'll share a couple things. Slides. I did like a quick and dirty overview of all this. I think Closing the Gap published it, I think it was, I don't know, 2022, maybe in January, December, January, that I think just for people who are interested, give them an overview of what I did and why. And it's very parent focused, so I can track that down as well. But then my question is, I don't know if I can pull it up in the next 20 minutes.
I wonder if Naomi, would you be willing, if Kirsten sends those resources, could you get it to the people on this call or that registered? Yes. So if you share it, send it. Will you put your email in the chat?
Yeah.
Naomi, so that we have where we can send it to? That would be wonderful. Thank you.
Look, I'm pulling some stuff.
Love it. I love all the resource sharing because why recreate the wheel if somebody else has started the work already? One of our favorite phrases, and it started off as Carolyn's, and then I have been hanging out with her so much in the last 5 years that it has now become probably mine, is that when we know better, we do better. And that really is also for families, is when we are providing professional learning too. I think a lot of the people on this call do that. It's also making sure that we're having a conversation that is shifting educators' thoughts around what is the role of families and partnering with families, because it is one thing for sure to help our families know better, but it's also another call for us to help our educators understand what that partnership can really look like, and shifting that mindset of, parents focus at home and we focus at school, but how do we capitalize on the expertise of our families? Gail, Carolyn mentioned Michigan Alliance for Families. in the state of Michigan, they do webinars monthly for families around topics that you kind of mentioned around what is my role in the IEP, what are my rights as a parent. I just did a session last week on how do we have collaborative conversations around assistive technology. And I can drop a link if Carolyn isn't doing it right now. It looks like she has the I'm searching for a link face. She's not. Okay, I'm getting rusty. We don't work together anymore. So apparently I'm losing my touch. But I can drop a link because all of their webinars are recorded and they have access to slide decks. And so those are available resources as well.
You know, you have reminded me that there is that whole parents' rights aspect of any IEP meeting, and certainly it's a strong one in IDEA. I think what I'm thinking about is more that, you know, there's very low wording about assistive technology in IDEA. And so when you start to think about parent involvement in assistive technology, it's almost something that we have to make up on our own as specialists. And I think that we have thought that if parents just knew what AT was and knew the steps, the consideration, including it in the IEP, stuff like that, that we'd be okay. And I think parents have a lot more to offer than we have sometimes given them credit for. But thank you for that link, Sarah, and I will go ahead and take a look at those and see if that can be helpful.
Yeah, if you go under their video section, they have a YouTube channel of past recordings and you'll get to see Carolyn O'Hearn's lovely face, or at least her voice.
Oh, good.
Oh, joy. Yay. Yeah, I was just looking and they have a series coming up. I think, Gail, you were mentioning how it stems beyond, it goes beyond AT. And so I think even if we were to look beyond our little niche group here, parents bring a lot to the table, period, about all of the different things that they're supporting their children at home. And so if there's a way to collaborate and connect a little bit more, that will help with that consistency as students grow and transition between programs and buildings and their next steps. With Michigan Alliance for Families, I know that they have a 5-part IEP parent series. And in part of that, it talks about the components of an IEP, because a lot of parents just show up and they're talked at, or they're asked, do you have any questions? And they're blindsided of like, oh, I guess not. Or what are your concerns? And they're like, oh, I don't know. And so beyond the components of the IEP, it talks more about how do you prioritize those concerns ahead of time? How do you connect with the IEP team meeting throughout, or the IEP team throughout the year? So it's not just once a year at the IEP team meeting, and talking about how to improve the parents' capability in having those productive conversations. So not just, oh, hey, I have an issue with this, but how do we talk through that? And I think that's something that I would love as a parent of non-disabled kids. How do I talk to my gen ed teachers to make sure that I'm supporting my kids and supporting the teachers that way? But I think that with these more complex needs, I'm excited for what Michigan Alliance for Families is doing beyond. So yeah, Sarah shared the link for their site in the chat.
You know, I forget to share some of the parent work that Penny Reed and I have done. So in the chat, I just put a link to the parent manual that we wrote quite some time ago. I think we revised it in 2012, Assistive Technology Pointers for Parents. And we used to sell it to raise money for kids who needed assistive technology, and we are now it's a free download on the Education Tech Points website. So there's several things on that site that would lend themselves to this conversation. Most of it not capacity building, because these were written before we really started thinking about the fact that we couldn't do everything. So so I'll just share that as a resource.
Thank you. Again, I will never have enough resources. I am always the person that loves to see what else is out there. So I am going to drop one more in the chat. I have started reading a book that was given to me like 3 years ago by our director of our project called Beyond the Bake Sale, The Essential Guide to Family School Partnership. Yep, I had him send a copy to Carolyn because I was like, lady, we need to read this. And we as a project, I work for Alt-Shift. It's a Michigan Department of Education grant funded initiative through the Office of Special Education. And so we focus on assistive technology and making sure all learners have what they need. And we are diving into this work of family school partnership and what does that look like and how can we intentionally talk to teams and design that. So I pulled that book back out and what I love is it's got some really great opportunities and suggestions for activities. So if you are thinking that parents are the way to building capacity or they are potentially a path to building capacity, it really highlights some very specific activities that you can do as a team to survey the culture of your school from a parent lens, to guide teams in terms of this is where we're at, what are our next steps moving forward? How can we intentionally develop a school culture where parents aren't just invited in at parent-teacher conferences once a year, but how can they meaningfully be a part of our teams, of our decision process? So it is a great resource. I am loving reading it and having so many ahas that I just thought I would share as well.
To piggyback off of that, I'm taking administrative courses, and it was our textbook for collaborating with families for my course around that. And so, yeah, just having some of the different checklists of, student work is posted in school hallways and in public places in the community and rotated often. Then you go through like, we're already doing this. We could do this easily. This might take time, or this will be hard, and kind of lets you as a team figure out what's a great idea, a good starting point, or what's something that we really need to hone in some extra resources and get a team together to talk about. So I also like this book.
Right. So I'm going to ask one of my favorite questions is what else? What else is on your mind or questions do you guys have?
I have a question that's kind of a general. I am doing a poster at ATIA this year on introducing our state AT project. And so I'm excited of all these resources that I found today, which is what we're doing. We're scouring out there saying, who's, like you said, I'm not reinventing the wheel. Who's got great resources? Where are things that we can use? I know I've been to some of the NATEs, the network meetings and things there, and the non-conference after events, but is there a forum for this sort of sharing? Is there an event? Is there an activity at ATIA or virtual or otherwise, in addition to this today, that would foster this kind of sharing of information? Because I love more information. The ed camp, yeah, that's what I was going to say. I've been to the ed camps in the evening, the non-conference ed camps. It depends on what the topic is and things like that. So
if you're on,
usually I end up down rabbit holes. I'll find a resource and then it'll lead to a resource, and then I'm down another resource. And I forgot where I started, but I found all these great things in the process.
if you're on Twitter, X, or whatever it's going to be called tomorrow, AT Chat, I know that they try to get together in person during ATIA. I don't think it's been officially scheduled as to when and where yet, but it's a really nice group with like Mike and Alyssa, who's here, and Kelly Fonner sometimes shows up, and Chris Bouquet will show up, and it's just nice to kind of collaborate together, and you can bring questions of like, hey, I saw that you spoke about, or I saw that you might have a resource. Can you tell me more? Or let's just share some things together. But that also might be a really great. Oh yeah, Alyssa. Thanks, Alyssa. It might be a really great thing just to have as like an AT chat topic anyway, of what are some questions that like we need resources, how can we pull them together so that we're not scouring and having to spend all of our time that way, but it's something that's cultivated or at least semi-filtered so that we don't have to do a Google search for it. So Friday night is Ed Camp. Location is pending.
And I noticed someone mentioned the quiet listserv. Love the listserv. I still follow that. We have a lot of, all of us scour that for resources. So, but it is nice.
Have you put it out there? Have you specifically asked the question on the listserv? That might be a nice way of
questions back and forth when we started the project to get some guidance on it. And then I've been through the archives too, pulling a lot of things up, but there's so many questions. So it would, it would be a lot.
You brought up ATIA, and so my brain goes to, are there others who are also going to be at ATIA this year? I know Alyssa's going to be there. I see Lori's going. I will be there. I know Carolyn's going to be there. Kirsten's going
I
to
will
be
be
there.
there.
Get this, guys. Got some that are joining virtually, some that are going to be there in person. That is one of the things that I love about this AT Town Hall and about AT Chat is it's an opportunity to really expand your AT network beyond your district or your state level or your regional level. So yeah, love it. And I'm excited. We didn't get to go last year. So the fact that I'm going this year, like I am beyond excited. And if iguanas are falling out of the trees this year, I'm going to be very, very upset. It was so cold the last time we went, they had a falling iguana warning. Right. Any other questions or resources or thoughts that you guys want to share for this Monday? Okay, so Alyssa, I have to know, does this happen often in Florida, like the falling iguana warnings?
No, I mean, it has to be pretty cold. And honestly, most of the iguana population is Orlando South. So it has to be cold enough in the Orlando going down to Miami area for it to happen. But it is a thing.
Okay. If it happens 2 times in a row that I go to ATIA, I'm just going to be very
But
sad.
I'm going to think it's you. Yeah.
Yes, then we won't come anymore and you guys can have some nice weather. Oh, Lori's concerned about the alligators potentially in the ponds and the parking lots. I had never thought of that, Lori, so thank you. All right. So
I know
Naomi,
Resna-
we're really,
I know Resna K-12 would meet and together at ATIA, so you might want to think about that. I don't know, in a separate time.
thanks, Mary. All right. Any other thoughts, questions? I see some head shaking no.
I know there's 8 minutes left and we can start a whole new topic if someone has something quick, or we could say enjoy your last 8 minutes before popping on to your next meeting. Sarah and I
You-
will stay with Naomi. Oh, who was that? That was
That was
oh,
Gail.
Yep.
You had mentioned earlier that you had some thoughts about coaching as it applies to capacity building. I'm wondering if you had anything you wanted to share with us. Did I
So
make
I'm
that
going to
up?
throw this. No, you did not. And I'm going to throw this out there real quick while Carolyn is looking / unmuting herself. Coaching is something that I think Carolyn and I could probably talk about for hours, not 6 minutes. And so what she did is she dropped a link to our handout from OCALI, where we talked about coaching, but also how supporting adults needs to be different than how we support students. And when we fail to recognize that, it backfires. Carolyn, I'm going to stop myself from babbling and see, do you have some coherent thoughts?
No, you were fine. You were doing great. Yeah, I think part of the conversation, because O'Cali does bring in educators, but it also brings some parent attendees as well. And so some of the conversation, it wasn't as AT forward. It was more of just how do we collaborate as adults coming in with different perspectives, different ideas, different things that we're seeing. Maybe the student does one thing with me, but I'm not seeing that with a different person. So how are we going to be able to collaborate in order to support the students' needs? So I dropped our handout from that in the chat. if you guys have any questions about what's in that content, because obviously the slides are there, but it's not necessarily, we don't write all of the text that we're going to be saying behind the scenes on the slides. But our emails, I think, are on that second slide, and we'd be happy to connect either Mike, Sara, or myself more about the coaching piece. Some of it comes from Jim Knight's work around coaching and working with adults. And then the other part is Nathan Lang Rad, which is, we did a book study last year. And so we talked a lot about the different drivers to support teacher effectiveness through coaching as well. Yeah, it is an awesome book. And it's thin, like that. It's a nice, like it's a quick, easy read. It's not one where I feel like I always find books and then they're so thick and I was like, I don't have time to read that, which is my bookshelf right now. But yeah, it's a good one.
Can you throw the title of the chat in the chat, Carolyn? That would be wonderful. So yeah, AT chat, if you guys are on X or Twitter, sometimes we will take a book on and do a book study. We did Better Conversations from Jim Knight last year. I think that was last year. All the years blend together the older you get. Right. Any other questions?
Well, I'm excited to
now.
see.
All right.
Yeah, I'm excited to see so many of you at ATIA this year. And then I had a request from Kelly Fonner before she popped off to share upcoming AT Town Hall and topics. So we will do that over on the quiet listserv if you're not there, but we'll also share it on Twitter. So we hope that you guys come back to share your wisdom and knowledge and expertise and to partner like this group. It was a fun chatty group today, which I appreciated.
Great hour. So enjoy your extra 4 minutes. If you guys do have questions or you want to stay on, Carolyn and I will stay on for a little bit with Naomi. Otherwise, enjoy having a few extra minutes.
Thanks, everybody.